Okay, thank you, Kym, to be here. So, Kym are going to be our first person that are going to give us our interview. Some details about when she feel discriminated at job. So we're gonna have amazing conversations with her.
Yeah. So like thank Kym for coming to our home and also telling her story, because I think there's a lot that we could learn from her stories and as well as others that's going to tell their stories as far as this series is concerned. So Kym, hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so very much for letting me talk about my experiences.
Absolutely. Like, so tell us when you moved to Houston. When was it?
2005.
2005. Okay.
I moved here because of Hurricane Katrina. Evacuating because of it. But
you found Houston very different from New Orleans, right? When you first started here?
Yes, because everybody says New Orleans the way you do. I'm joking. New Orleans. The biggest comparison between the two was the very bohemic environment of New Orleans is the norm, and is almost the defining environment and atmosphere of the city. And coming here to Houston, it's a very corporate environment, and it reminds us of the people that we host the party for.
Yes. So as far as your experience with corporate America and also being a lesbian, how did that went about, especially in the beginning? Was it something that was different, or was it something that you were free to just be yourself?
I was so not prepared for what I encountered. Being an advocate in New Orleans and working in so many gay-centric professions or organizations, or New Orleans being as gay accepting as it is, that the city really folds the gay culture into the New Orleans culture, and so there is no such separation. Moving here to Houston and landing in such a sterile industry and a sterile environment made that very difficult. It meant I had to change my vernacular constantly. I stumbled over pronouns all the time. I was single when I first lived here. My ex-wife and I had split up maybe a few months after our kids graduated from, my sons graduated. Our sons graduated, but my sons, I came with the kids, graduated from high school. And so 2007, she had moved back to New Orleans. So moving here after being an advocate there was very different, because I realized quickly the things I couldn't talk about. And even like how I spent my weekend. If it was with friends that had also moved here, that perhaps we hung out in New Orleans in gay establishments, because that's who we are, it wasn't a conversation that I had here in the city or in Houston.
Or in the coffee room.
It was, in fact, I kept two separate phones for a very long time, so that my New Orleans life and my Houston life never crossed paths. It was very difficult to separate that life if I had one line of communication. It was a lot easier to keep my New Orleans life separated in a box, and my Houston life compartmentalized and in a box, so that when I went across the state line, yay, I'm back to feeling comfortable. I don't have to worry about being gay. It was conversations that I heard, things that I would overhear in the background. And at the time I was single, so going places without anybody was very easy to do. Company events. It wasn't until even after I'd started dating my now wife, She and I originally got engaged in New Orleans, very private between us and Facebook. But again, that's right.
Yeah.
But again, my life is very separated. So my friends in Houston are not my Facebook friends in New Orleans. I was heading for a cruise with my sister, and Gloria had picked up my engagement ring and had come to my job to propose to me. And it was very romantic. We had just been watching all of these great proposals that happened. And before I had gotten back up to my desk, I had 3 emails from the HR department. If you have any problems, we will have your back. And what that told me was they already knew it was going to be an issue. I had an email from a coworker, Denise, who worked in another building off the main property. She had emailed me and said, "Did you just get engaged?" I said, "How did you know that?" Because somebody said 2 women just got engaged in front of the main building, and you were the only person that I knew that is out enough and doesn't care enough that would be you. And she had met Gloria before, so she knew us, and she knew that we were headed down that path. It wasn't, you know, we met this weekend, we're married next week. And then I'd started hearing things from my other project members, my other team members, that they were not going to work on a project with a gay woman. I am not working on a project with a woman who lives a life like that. And then my supervisor became a little more distant. And the woman who was my immediate supervisor has a gay niece who's in the military. And so her, in recognizing that, she and I would go down on smoke breaks, and she would let me vent, and she would tell me things that she had heard, and she would protect me as much as she possibly could. And then I got transferred to another project. I noticed that on that particular project, the supervisor was particularly interested in always bringing up my relationship, because she wanted to poke fun at it and try to poke holes in it, and thought that I would be uncomfortable. So one of the things that I learned when I was an advocate back in New Orleans is people will poke fun at what they think your weakness is. So if you don't appear to have a weakness about being gay, then they have nothing to poke holes into. But she would make little snide remarks all the time, very loudly, trying to garner a laugh, and then getting upset when I had something to come back with, because I've been dealing with this my whole life. This isn't new. You're not coming up with the first insult. That's not an original stance. So of course, when you are fighting being gay your entire life, you're used to everything, and you got quick comebacks for pretty much everything you hear.
Because you've heard it before.
Because you've heard it before. And I wanted to join the Diversity Advisory Council, and was explicitly told, no, we will not have any gay or lesbian representation, because the owners of this company don't agree with that lifestyle. And I thought, and said out loud, I find that strange, because they live in San Francisco. So it's a little different. It's not like they don't see it, even if they decide it's not for them. I'm okay with that, because I'm not converting anybody. But you can't tell me that a business whose main home office is in San Francisco has a problem with gay people. It's not the business that does. And if it is, they're putting on a good front in a city that I'm sure that they're contributing to, because that city certainly supports the gay community there.
Of course, yeah.
So I think the problem is very specific and locally driven. And it was interesting that the most homophobic thing that I heard did not come from the 2 people that were having the Trump conversations. It came from the one black woman that I was on the project with in that office. And I happened to hear a phone call that she was having with her daughter on the phone over lunch hour. And somehow she recorded it, and I got a piece of that phone call that I still have.
Oh.
So I get back to the office. I didn't mean, I was talking about somebody else to my daughter, and it had nothing to do with you, really, because I'm the only gay person in the room that you work with, and that pretty much was the conversation you were having. So it just came to a point where, okay, it's time to go. It's time to go, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there was a. So did you ever? So you were never like in the closet at work, or is it something that was? Were you ever in the closet, or was it something that you just kind of nonchalantly discussed with people?
I don't think. I think I was.
Okay.
To say that fairly, it wasn't something that I talked about, and then when I did talk about it, I felt very uncomfortable doing it. So if that's what being in the closet feels like, then yes.
Being scared to say.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I felt very uncomfortable the first time Gloria and I went to the company Christmas party.
Functions. Yeah.
And the only reason that we continued with our plans to go was because it was a New Orleans jazz theme. And so I thought, that's the universe saying that you should be there because representation matters.
Yeah.
And
As far as your experience there, what would you was there anything that you would have done differently as far as your experience in that particular company? Because you've had a few, but this particular company here, is there anything that you would
I do have a lessons learned folder.
You
Are
do,
you kidding me? So what I have now done in leaving that corporate environment is started my own company. And my company is specifically designed to support other businesses. So the only thing that we do is go in and help you make your business better for your employees and your bottom line. Sometimes we do it by streamlining processes and procedures. Sometimes we do it by helping you train employees. We help you train your employees on discrimination and acceptance and inclusion, and what your company's inclusion policy should really look like. So some of the things that we have talked to our clients about is making certain that their entire company literature, their entire library of company literature is inclusive. So don't just put it into the welcome handbook. Hey, we don't discriminate, and have the sexual orientation or sexual identity placed in there. Everything that's in the library of your company literature should be inclusive. That means if you have pictures, then you have to include pictures of other cultures, pictures of same-sex relationships, pictures of single-family relationships.
So what would you say to someone, a young woman or man who is part of the LGBTQ community, coming into a corporate world and are still scared?
Don't do it. I'm kidding.
Create your own company. Build your own company instead is the key word. What would you say to someone like a young engineer who happens to be still scared to come out at work, or think that their personal life would infringe on their possibility to grow in a company? What would you say to them
You
now?
pull out these most obscure.
What would you say to yourself?
What?
10 years ago?
Yeah, to yourself.
What would you say to
What would I say to my 10-year younger self?
Yes.
No one can determine your wealth except you. Nobody. Not your spouse, not your parents, not your siblings, nobody. Nobody gets to determine that. And this is how you know. If you visited every therapy, AA, NA, abusive relationships, with spouses, with parents, every single relationship tells you that person on the other side of the argument doesn't have the right to tell you what your self-worth is. So if you eliminate everybody who doesn't have the right to tell you that, nobody has the right to tell you that. There is never going to be advice that you get from anybody that says, listen to that other person tell you what your capabilities are, what your wealth is, what your self-importance is, what your role is in the world. People who bully are afraid of something that you remind them of. So people who pick on you, there is something about you that reminds them of whatever their weakness or their fear is
Or their
in
fears
themselves.
in a specific-
And so it's not you that they're fighting, it's that fear that they're pushing away. So when you look at it that way, you kind of see it a little differently than this becomes a defensive front between you and I, because now I see you as somebody who is afraid of whatever that strength is that you see that you're fussing about. So
Okay.
if you're discriminating against me because I'm gay, or if you're harassing me because I'm gay, it's because you question yourself.
Yourself.
It has nothing to do with me questioning myself, because I can be in a room of straight people and I don't want to sleep with any of you. But if the fact that I'm standing next to you makes you uncomfortable because you think that my gay vibes are going to jump off of me onto you,
Yes.
that is something that's secretly in your head, you know, I am afraid of confronting that thing that that person reminds me of.
My fears.
You are stronger than you realize at your weakest moment. So when you feel the absolute weakest, and I would say that up to and including when you are feeling suicidal, you are stronger than you realize you are, because you're in control of every single moment that leads up to that final moment. And so if in that moment that you're the weakest, that you're giving up, every moment beyond that in your life, you're stronger than you think you are at the weakest point of your life. Strong people don't diminish people, ever. Not for any reason. People who are strong are generally very calm and confident and comfortable in that strength. They know when to use it, when not to use it, when to apply it, when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate, when it's overbearing. They understand that, and that's part of what their strength is, that calm of discernment. And so they never diminish people. They are always building people up. The only people that diminish people are people that feel weak, because they have to make somebody feel weaker than they feel in that moment.
Or them feel powerful.
So if ever you find that you are diminishing somebody else's character, look at yourself and think, what about them makes me feel like I need to bring them down a notch so that I can have this moment. If you're speaking, this is the rule that I use, because I hate gossip. I hate gossip. I hate gossip because I've usually been the target of it. And so I have very strict rules about gossip. If you're speaking in first person, it's venting. If you're speaking in second person, it's a conversation. If you're speaking in third person, it's gossiping. So if you ever want to know how do I vent without sounding like I'm gossiping about somebody? So if I'm talking about things that affect me, I'm venting. If I'm talking to you and I'm talking in second person, I'm having a conversation with you. If I'm talking to you about you, I'm talking in third person and I'm gossiping. So if you're talking first person, you're venting. If you talk in second person, you're having a conversation. If you talk in third person, then you're gossiping.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got.
That's awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you
you
very much.
for this interview, and
Absolutely.
also thank you for sharing your story, because I think there's a lot of lessons that, like myself, would learn if I would have met you 10 years ago.
For sure.
I love having the opportunity to, I love being the sandwich generation of watching all the fighting and the advocacy and being a part of that, and then watching the generation that is benefiting from that.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's super gratifying.
Yeah. No, I'm super thankful for the advocacy before the generation before us, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to be as free and as open as we are now, and we're
Yeah.
able to live our lives the way you guys only dreamed of when you were my
Absolutely.
age.